work this time. Jesus, last time like Instagram crashed and nobody can do live.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not a fun time last week.
I think
but thank you guys. I hope you guys are safe right now.
This is the first time we've been on Instagram Live, I think. So
yes.
It's exciting times for us too.
Technology. I feel old sometimes when I'm trying to figure it out.
It's so good to meet you finally.
Finally, yes. We've been following each other for a while, and I've been seeing you guys. And like the last time you were in LA, I was already at another show at the same time. I was like, motherfucker.
Too many shows.
But how are you guys? Are you guys safe right now during all this coronavirus craziness? Because you're
yeah, we're healthy. Kids are healthy. Our families are healthy. So.
Just bored, you know.
Bored as fuck, like all of us.
Yeah.
I know it.
How has it been out in Texas? Is everyone in extreme lockdown quarantine?
It's not as intense in Texas, but you know, we're out in the country, so it's a little bit more relaxed, I'd say.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Orange County hasn't gotten too crazy, but LA is getting a little bit madhouse. I'm hoping this will blow over soon and then everybody can start touring again finally.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. What we're going to do this fall and hopefully get something together, but it's scary right now. It's heavy.
Well, yeah, you guys were supposed to have a huge European tour in this last month, and shit hit the fan.
Yeah, we're supposed to be there right now. But that got rescheduled, which is exciting for next March, so.
Yeah,
so it's going to be for next year, for the next year program, so in 2021.
Yeah, March 2021.
Nice, and then for tentatively later this year, are you guys going to be doing anything else?
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah, we just had a chat with our booking agent about that, and it's a real crapshoot, right? Everybody's trying to get rebooked for the fall since they've missed all these dates in the spring. So venues are, you know, they've got like 21 bands lined up to play the same date kind of thing, right? So it's hard to even book for the fall at this point, but we're going to try our best.
Well, we just you want to make sure that people are going to come, because if everyone's terrified and doesn't want to touch each other, then...
Well, actually, I don't think rock fans are going to have a problem. They don't give a fuck.
I our fans will be fine, and for the most
rock
part.
fans are just loyal diehards. They're going to mosh pit no matter what, even if they're wearing masks.
I agree.
Yeah.
But congratulations on this new album release. This is freaking, especially right now during this time, new music for us to listen to. And I definitely got to say, this is a huge, I would say a great 180 from the EP you guys dropped before.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. The EP was our first, attempt to make metal together. So there was a bit of a learning curve there, but I think with the full length now, we've got a good direction for the band going forward.
Yeah, especially for me, because I was really new to metal. I came out of opera and classical, so I had to learn. I was working with Melissa Cross and just trying to figure out how I was going to bring that sound into metal and make it powerful and still engaging. And, I don't have the screams that everybody does. I do mostly clean vocals. So, but I think we really achieved that on this record.
Well, you don't even need to have it, because this whole album, literally, when I was listening to it from front cover all day, all week, it's just Meshuggah and Lacuna Coil together.
Thank you. That is quite the reference.
Our two faves, so.
It's a great jet sound in there with some futuristic, almost Egyptian 80s metal style in there, and then having that Lacuna Coil operatic sound to it. Perfect blends together.
That's awesome.
Glad you liked it. Yeah, good.
But going kind of that quick time capsule, because this is really cool. The story of how you two met.
Ooh.
Well, not cool, but controversial, but so I know you guys, from a church aspect, you guys met, and then how did you perform Tulip and the name, and then made your way out to Texas?
You're looking at me, huh?
Well, I can start. We met in 2011 at a really pretty intense Christian Reformed church, and we were in the church band together. And then, always wanted to make music together, and of course I wasn't part of that whole space, but we weren't really allowed to, and we were not together romantically.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of thing that there's a whole personal element to it, which we're totally happy to talk about, and then just at a purely musical level, I think having played metal my whole life, right? When I met Ashleigh and I heard her voice, I immediately recognized that she's got a great voice for metal, right? And I personally, I gravitate more towards female-fronted bands just because I think the female voice is sort of better positioned to cut through like a dense mix. I mean, screaming, of course, is the same, but listening to like a powerful female voice over metal just sits better for me, and I've always just gravitated towards that sound. So yeah, when we met, my immediate reaction was like, she'd be a great fit for a metal band. But it took us a long time at a personal level to finally break free a lot of that stuff, and eventually, you know, end up together here to really give us that opportunity to pursue the musical side of things.
Yeah, essentially what happened was we were part of this, it's called, you know, Calvinist tradition. It's really strict, and we were kicked out essentially because we wanted to be together. And we needed to get divorced in order to do that. So that was really frowned upon in that community. And yeah, we lost a lot of people in our family and friends and our whole community, but we came out on the other side, and we're doing great. We're making music about it, and we meet a lot of people that have a lot of the same stories. So that's been really encouraging to us as well.
Yeah, that's when I read about that and I saw some of the articles and interviews and how you guys discuss about that. That's huge. I understand because I grew up a little bit of hardcore Catholic. I'm not part of that anymore, so I know that. I understand that religious tension going on in there. And for you guys to leave that, take a leap of faith, jump out, and then make your own band and still make it more popular and make it better than you were previously, in a better state now. That's a huge jump. Huge jump.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap there too. If you grew up in the Catholic Church, you know that there's a very sort of strict, rigid position on marriage and divorce, which of course, you know, we appreciate. We understand why that's the case, and we take those things seriously. But there are circumstances where, you know, if you need to make a serious decision in your life and you believe it's in your best interest, then you got to be empowered to do that, and it's hard to do that within that framework sometimes. So that was a major challenge for us over the last couple of years, but we're here now, and we're certainly much better off for it, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah! And where did the name Tulip come from? So who came up with it, and then you guys' symbol and your band look with it, and all that stuff?
Yeah, that actually comes. We just kind of twisted it and put it on its head. It's an acronym from our former faith. So it stands for all these different things, which we don't have to go into, but it's essentially, we borrowed it from that tradition and we're making music now. You also just thought it was great because it was a flower. It was like lended itself well to like the female fronted.
Yeah, like more directly, the 5 letters, TULIP, are like the tenets of the faith. So similar to like in a Catholic sense, if you've got like the sacraments or something, in Reformed Christianity, TULIP spell out the different tenets of that faith. So that originally was kind of intended to be just a sort of an exploration of those ideas, we'll say. And then as we
worked through them and
left that community, it's become perhaps more of a critique, and the name stuck because, to Ashleigh's point, it's just a good name for a female-fronted metal band because it's kind of flowery and it works well.
Yeah.
No, it's catchy, and it catches people off guard because you see Tulip, you think it's more like vibrant, colorful, and then you hear the music, hard, heavy symphonic metal to it, and then a female operatic sound to it. It's kind of like, whoa, where did this come from? But still perfect. And then for your other 2 band members, for Ryan and Brandon, how did they come in to join the band and whatnot? Were they part of the EP before, or just with the new album?
They joined pretty early on. Like, we've only been making music with Tulip since September of 2018. So Brandon, we met through Melissa, my teacher, because he'd been in a band called Oni for a few years. and they broke up. And so he was a free agent. And so she reached out to him and put us in touch, and we, you know, loved him immediately. And then Ryan, I forget Ryan's name.
Ryan.
Ryan, who is like our family, he joined in January, I'd say, of 2019 or so.
Yeah, Ryan was like a friend of a friend of a friend kind of recommendation, and he ended up being a great fit for us. He's a really heavy hitter and got great groove sense, so we really wanted to have a drummer in the band that could just kind of sit in the pocket and groove with us. So he's been an amazing addition.
Yeah.
Yeah, he stands out on the album. Right next to your guitar playing, he's another huge standout on there for the whole track. It's like I can isolate his drums perfectly well, and it's amazing what he can do.
Yeah. And those, I mean, not that you would think otherwise, but they're live drums on the record, which I know these days a lot of that kind of stuff ends up being sampled or programmed, right? So
yeah,
to play that technically and that tightly, if you do see us live at some point, he plays like he plays on the record. It's incredible.
Really impressive.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, and then going, so is just caveat perfectly right into this new album, High Strangeness. So this was all independently made by you guys, correct? All put out independently.
Yeah.
It's a big production. Like, it sounds like it's a big, huge, for someone to put it out as a record label. It sounds great and amazing. So I don't know who did your guys' mixing and producing and all that stuff, but it's on point.
Yeah, thank you. We do everything else, so it's a lot of work.
He's so tired.
Yeah, by the end of the process, you tend to just kind of be like, I've heard these songs way too much. I don't want to be. But yeah, we started recording probably last summer after we finished our tour with Evergrey, and it's the way that we work. It just takes a long time because there's so much in the way of layering, and the orchestrations take a very long time to write and then also record. Like, the sample library that I use has every instrument and articulation you can imagine in the orchestral sense. So like every violin note, every cello note, every viola note, like you got to play each one in by hand on a keyboard. So those things take a really long time. And then the mix, you know, at the end also takes a long time because of the number of layers that I have to find space for. So it was a lot of work. Every time I tell myself that I'm going to have somebody else do the mix for it, like, no, I've come this far. I might as well keep going. But maybe next time we'll try to employ some help in that department. But yeah, I'm glad you think it sounds good, because that makes me feel a little better about myself.
And were you using Pro Tools for it?
Yeah, all Pro Tools.
Yeah. And like for you now knowing that you did it all, fuck balls. That must have took so much time and mind-numbing effort at night just to go through it. And damn, because the amount of what you guys do for the song, especially with my favorite song being Deep State, and just holy crap, now I can appreciate more how much time you took on that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And I think for us too, you know, it's because of Ashleigh's vocals and the fact that we're together, it does make sense for us to work alone together for the most part. I mean, obviously the other guys record their parts as well, but it's just to go to a studio and have to work with a third party and be prepared when we get in there to track everything perfectly is more challenging for us. It's a little easier in that sense with Ashleigh to record and say, let's chip away at it today, get a couple, you know, verses down and make sure that they sound good, re-listen to them, change a few things. So that process is more iterative when we do it together, but the result then is that hopefully we get exactly what we want at the end. So.
Now, from recording to post-production and mixing and everything like that, how long did it take for this album?
Well, yeah, I think we probably recorded the bulk of it through the fall of 2019.
Yeah.
And then I really intended for it to be finished by Christmas time, but that just didn't, that was, you know, not possible.
That's a big tenant right there.
And I think probably through the first couple of months of 2020, I basically spent every day just working through the mix and getting all the layers in. And even little things like guitar solos take a long time to piece together with Brandon, just to make sure that they fit and that we have the right kind of vibe. So all those little things just add up. So probably we finished recording sometime in December, and then another couple of months into like late February to get the mix finished.
Mm-hmm.
Which is still a good amount of time alone. Started recording in late fall and then putting it out early this year with mixing as well and post-production. That's a pretty quick turnaround. I mean,
yeah.
Saying you wanted it out on Christmas, that's very that's very high to do that, because that's hard enough right there. Putting it out early this year, right before, and perfect timing, unfortunately, with the coronavirus. But for everyone to listen to now, that's a quick turnaround for any band to do that. Even if you're with a large record company and they're doing it, they're going to waste at least half a year before they even want to put it out.
Yeah, and that was part of our problem too, is just deciding how to approach promoting it. We're independent, we don't have a label, so there's always a question of like, do we try to shop the record, do we wait, do we hold on to it, do we release the songs like as singles over a long period of time? But in the end, I think we figured we needed to just get more content out for our listeners, so we got the record out ourselves, and so far the response has been good, so we feel good about it at this point.
Oh yeah, this is a huge first album. The music video you guys released for the single, it already has 25,000 views, I believe, already on there, and scoring up high. Even some of your EPs before, the singles you've dropped, it's up to 50,000, 60,000 views on there. So it's getting rotated.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this helps. Hopefully we can more fans.
So where did the name High Strangeness come from? Where'd you guys? Well, what's the part behind that?
Well, High Strangeness, the concept of the record is, you know, a bit of an homage to just like the unexplained, maybe a little bit of the paranormal. The High Strangeness itself comes from the ufology community. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
We so the album's kind of divided into 3 different sections: above, below, and within. And so yeah, I mean, within these kind of strange experiences, people will look kind of like to the heavens, and then they'll look down to hell sometimes, and then also within. So that's where that all came from. Yeah.
Mm. And then so like going straight into the first track, which is kind of like a nice lead intro, Above, and it's got this nice futuristic, almost like Mass Effect game series vibe to it, as you're kind of crescendoing into your first single as well, Midnight in the Desert.
Right.
Yeah, so you explained it well, but I think for us, you know, at least at an instrumental level, I like the idea of sort of levels in a video game is the way I would explain it, right? So our albums tend to reflect that, where each section is sort of representative of a smaller idea that's part of like a broader kind of narrative. So that tends to lend itself to creating like intros to things. So the first is called Above, and the intro to Above is designed to kind of give you that spacey sort of vibe, like looking upwards. And actually there's like audio embedded in it, voiceover audio that you can probably hear, which is from this famous video, which I'm not sure how many people know this, but there was like a series of UFO videos released by the United States Navy in the last couple of years that are really reputable, right? Like these are like, you know, 4-star generals or you know, Navy commanding officers that are seeing these things and talking about it on their intercom with their controllers, being like, I don't know what I'm looking at here, you know?
So that's the voiceover dubs you put in there.
That's the voiceover in there.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
It's a really spooky video if you have the time to watch it. It's called the Gimbal video. And it shows this like infrared image of something that is completely unexplainable to these pilots talking to each other, being like, I have no idea what this is, right? So it's a little tongue-in-cheek for us, but it's something interesting to think about, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where that track comes from.
Oh, and it blends. I mean, already knowing that now, it makes perfect sense how it's setting up for it. It's almost like you guys, when you were doing this process, making the album and how you layered it, now I'm already thinking in my head, this sounds like you guys kind of went a Tool approach, because every Tool album is totally a total wave, and what they're doing, it has meaning behind everything, even those little interludes they add to it.
Yeah, I'd say that you've like admired Tool for a really long time, and you've played a lot.
Yeah.
I'm new to Tool.
The Latter Alice album for me was like life-changing, and it was for that reason. The songs are great, but it's the overarching narrative of the whole record and the way everything kind of moves together, and there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about it too, which are fun to get into. So yeah, that is certainly part of the way that we approach writing.
That it's perfect. And now hearing that from what you said for the above, I can layer it together. That's perfect, actually, analogy for this whole thing. But now going into Midnight in the Desert, that's your guys' first single as well. How did you guys decide that to release that as a single as opposed to any of the other songs?
I think every time we would play it, even in MIDI form, like really early on, everyone we would play it for was really like affected by it. They were really, I mean, impressed is maybe the wrong word, but everyone really took to the song. And then also Midnight in the Desert is a reference to Art Bell, who is a former radio broadcaster who died recently, but has a lasting legacy in like American pop culture. And so we wanted to sort of like pay homage to him. And then when we went to shoot the video, we definitely wanted it to be out in West Texas and like as late as possible. And I think we went out to Fort Griffin, which isn't quite as west as we thought we would get, but it's like maybe
it's like 2.5 hours west of Dallas, DFW. And
it's an amazing place.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. It's an old, I think it was like a cavalry barracks from, you know, like the Civil War period or earlier even. And so it's just like these ruins of these barracks in sort of an empty desert kind of field. And they have these free roaming longhorn cattle and everything. Really cool place to visit if you're in Texas. But yeah, it just seemed like the right kind of vibe for a video that deals with that experience of being alone in the desert at night, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, then Ashleigh's voice for it was that set the tone for the whole record. Having her big operatic voice going in there was a perfect crescendo leading to everything else going into it. And this whole album is a great wave. It's a perfect wave. So it's not, you're never going too high at one point or too low. You're just gradually going up and up and up and then decrescendoing down.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And that's important to us. Like we just talked about with Tool. I think it's hard to do that these days because, you know, people's attention spans are short and people want singles, and I certainly appreciate that, but it's fun to make a full-length album, and if you listen to it front to back, the experience is a little different than listening to each individual song, you know, in sort of a playlist setting or something like that. So
exactly, taking the time to appreciate it, and which more people need to do for their music nowadays. Get a quick single, quick hit number instead of actually listening to the whole song and going through the whole ensemble of it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now going into Missing Time, I have to say this was giving me such an 80s metal feel to it. Like Judas Priest, Somewhere in Time, like it just the riffs that you guys put on there, and also like a Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance on there, just the guitar licks and riffs in there alone. I just got the vibe the whole time for me. Cool. It felt nice. It was a nice blend with it because you're not expecting that. When you're thinking a symphonic heavy metal band, you're not expecting to feel old 80s riff from some classic bands, but it throws it in there perfectly and blends really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is another example of instrumentally, and I'll let Ashleigh speak to the lyrics, but instrumentally, I definitely wanted it to feel like a video, like a video game, a retro video game kind of thing. And it has that sort of like, that more like up-tempo, straight-ahead feel, which is not common in our music anymore. We do mostly like kind of that halftime groovy feel, but that song ended up being kind of more, like an up-tempo video game type of vibe.
Yeah, I think you nailed it though with the 80s vibe thing too. Last year for my birthday, Colin took me to see Pat Benatar, who's
hell yes.
She's like in her late 60s now, and she sounds still like so amazing. So I'd say that track is definitely inspired by Pat Benatar, for sure.
Yeah, Ashleigh's vocal on that one. The first time she sang that vocal, the verse vocal, I just burst out laughing. I was like, this is incredible. Like, just ripping, you know? And like, so yeah, that to me also really enhanced the track in a way that I didn't expect, right? I'd been listening to it instrumentally for so long, and when she brought the vocal in, it took it up like another 200%. So yeah.
Cool.
Well, now going into, I want to ask about the name for this one, for Communion. And so, like, your guitar playing laid perfectly in there. It was a great lead up. But I'm just curious, and like going into it, what does this name have to do with a religious background or whatnot, with the name Communion and whatnot?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it definitely pulls from the Christian idea of communion that a lot of us grew up with. And then it also goes into the sort of like Whitley Strieber book communion. And it's just about like whatever kind of symbiotic relationships we have in life, basically. So it could be a sexual relationship. There's definitely overtones of that in the song. Or just, you know, anything that is reciprocal or any kind of codependency attached to it. So for sure there's the Christian influence on it, but there's also kind of like a whole new idea associated with that.
Yeah, it's sort of about intimacy at some level.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so there's an element of that in the Christian version of communion where you're supposed to be like eating the body of Christ, right? So we took that idea and then kind of morphed it into something a little different.
Yeah.
Nice. I figured I had to do something with that, and I was curious about it. I wanted to wait for you guys to say. I'm like, this makes sense. Actually, listening to the lyrics and whatnot. I'm like, this is too convenient. There's a plot, there's a twist, and they're tying it in. But that's a great way to explain how you guys are going with it. And then you added below. So beginning of the album was above. Now you added below right after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And below rolls right into Theater of the Dead. So below is sort of just an intro to that track. But same idea as above, trying to create like a brooding kind of soundscape that's representative of the ominous nature of, you know, the kind of supernatural that's all around us, right? Yeah. And so you can hear that there's some kind of cool sound effects in there, like this sort of like whispering echo type stuff that helps just to build into Theater of the Dead.
Yeah.
And then Theater of the Dead, the song itself, I would say this is the most operatic metal song of the album, going into that Amaranthi, you know, out in Germany, that band, Oil, Evanescence style-ish. This is the heaviest one in that operatic heavy metal, symphonic metal style, I would think personally. I don't know how you guys are with when you film the album, but as a song-wise, I felt that was the highest peak in that style.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's definitely the most European sounding, and the way that I wrote it, when he gave me the instrumental, I wanted it to sound almost like a folk song in a way. So that's why it's got an actual story, which is why it also lends itself perfectly to our friend Kyle's amazing animation that he did for the video. So we were really impressed by the work that he did in that video. It was just gorgeous, and yeah, that song is for sure the most symphonic European. All those flavors are in it for sure. It
seems to be the one that people like the most too, at least in terms of the number of views that we're getting on the video. And
a lot of people from the gaming community are really into that song.
Yeah, this whole album has that feel to it. It has like such a great like futuristic game soundtrack to it, but it's a great thing to listen to yourself. Like there's a song with every style, you blend perfectly in each song going through the album, and it's not like different to each song, going from gent, going into symphonic orchestra metal, and then going into a heavy metal sound. You guys are doing that such in a nice way that you can pick a song out for somebody to listen to and for them to be curious about that style to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's intentional too, is just to try to make the album as eclectic as possible, to try to, you know, allow people who have different tastes to find something that they like, you know, and because our tastes are pretty broad in that sense too. Like I love listening to deathcore, and, you know, like you brought up Meshuggah, and that's probably too extreme for what we would be able to create ourselves, and yet I love it. So we try to put that flavor in there occasionally, and then, you know, Ashleigh's background as a singer and songwriter, there's a lot of stuff that's more melodic and pop in its nature.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's something I like to point out from, you know, when fans hear from their artists, what you're listening to right now on your Spotify, your iPhone and whatnot. And it's never the artist that you guys, they expect you to listen to. They think, you know, heavy metal bands are going to listen to straight, all Lamb of God only. But Randy Blythe doesn't.
They're like, for sure, one of the bands I latched onto the earliest. I just think Randy's vocals are so special. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, within this space, there are so many different genres, and I think there's room for everything.
Yeah, you're right, and I think like you can certainly see people's influences coming through in their music, different bands that you would listen to growing up. But in our case, a lot of the stuff that we draw in for inspiration isn't metal, so that when we write a song that is metal, it doesn't entirely sound like something else, even though we're borrowing from everything. I mean, it's symphonic. sounds like Lacuna Coil or, you know, even Nightwish or any of these symphonic metal bands, but the inspiration for the songs usually comes from something other than metal, you know, chord changes or melodies or, you know, just an idea. So that tends to help an artist create something that's a little more unique in that sense.
Yeah.
100%. Now going into Entity, I have a question about the lyrics going into the song, because there's some interesting lyrics in there, and I'm curious about it. So, the cancer grows within her, infecting the child's mind. Is pertaining something specific that's happened to you guys or one of you? It was curious. The lyrics were definitely interesting.
Yes. So this song actually had a different working title, which we can't share.
It might have been
somebody's name. So we'll leave that out. But we spoke about this recently with our friend Jim, who did an interview with us recently, and it's a caricature, a personality type that we both grew up with. A lot of people grew up with. It's the sort of church lady, and in these big mega churches, especially, kind of like the ones that we were associated with a little bit, but there is a type of woman specifically who is very well dressed, very fancy, has a lot of power within the community, but is actually a very dark person. So that's what this song is about. I don't know if you want to say any more about that, but
I think you got it. It's you know, it's the external presentation of I've got everything. I've got power and prestige and everything. I'm put together, but underneath it is like a seed of evil in a sense, right? So yeah, that's sort of where that idea of like the cancer comes from, and that kind of lyric in the song.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Marilyn Monroe figure. She looks so beautiful on the outside, but dark in the inside.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, then right after that, you went into kind of another interlude song with Within going into it. And is there anything, a reason why you threw that in there going before it into the Inner Light?
I think, you know, conceptually we wanted to have another bumper track into the last third of the album, and
it feels very much more trance as opposed to Above and Below. It feels a lot more of a trance digital sound.
Yeah, and part of that is, you know, like you mentioned, you like the track Deep State. It's that more introspective, sort of looking within yourself, and like in a trance-like vibe, exploring the inner workings of the human mind, the human condition that are relatable to the things that we discussed through Below and Above, right?
Yeah, and then that goes into Inner Light, right?
And that goes into the Inner Light.
Yeah, straight into Inner Light. And Brandon stands out like huge in the bass at the beginning. Out of all the songs, I think he stands out the most in the beginning, and it's awesome. Like it was nice to hear him stick out the most to it, and I think this is probably besides Deep State, this is the second song that reminds me of the Gent sound, of a Gent sounding rock band, which is great because I don't know if he's doing any slap bass on there or whatnot with it, but it stood out a lot.
Well, so that track actually, interestingly enough, is what would be technically a 7-string guitar drop tune. So the bass is at a drop A, which is as low as you can get to actually hear that low fundamental A frequency. So that definitely lends itself to being kind of like a really bottom heavy sound. And then of course there's a few, that rhythmic pattern through the verse, which is really kind of genty and snappy, is where you really hear that for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then that goes into my favorite song of Deep State. And I never get tired. When I've been blasting this, like at least once a day, I've been playing it on. It's got this crazy Egyptian gent sound with everything you're adding to it. Again, with that Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time, futuristic into it. Guitar solos on there. It's fucking perfect. Like I almost kind of wish that was the single in a way, because it is an amazing song.
You are not the first person to say that, actually. A few other have said you should put Deep State out. We just feel like it's maybe too long to be a single. That's the only reason why, because it's almost 5 minutes, I think, right? So.
Yeah, it's a long track. The outro, of course, is like probably my favorite part on the whole record is the outro to that track.
And that's how we were planning on ending our set.
Our live set, yeah. But it takes so long to get there that it was hard to think of how we would be able to, you know, really get people to stay engaged for the whole song. But I guess, yeah, we've got the same feedback from other people, so maybe that'll be on the list for the next video if we get to one.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. But yeah, it's one of my faves for sure, too.
The guitar solos on there are amazing. They stick out the most on this song. I mean, it's just perfect from the tracking and adding that Egyptian sound going into it. I don't know if you guys think it's an Egyptian kind of like weird sound to it, but it was awesome, and it gave you that, like, you're coming out of the maze now of this labyrinth of the music you're listening through, and then you're starting to come out to the end.
Yeah, that's a great
description.
Look, yeah, we don't need to say anything.
Yeah.
Well, then you're finishing off with the longest song on the album, and Transfiguration. It's like 6 minutes and 47 seconds, I believe. Almost 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah.
But it's a great ending. It's like your Avenged Sevenfold exit song, like, you know, finishing off with a big, huge ending to it.
Yeah. And I don't know if you caught this, but it ties in, the last lyric of the song ties in with the first lyric of the song. We kind of bring back that the slip into this raylessness of night. It kind of ends it. So it's sort of, we've been on this long, winding, like you said, labyrinth journey, and then finally we've sorted through. We've fought through all the bosses. The video game is over. We've defeated everybody, and now we're safe and can sleep and relax. And
there's a great example of that on the Periphery 2 album, which I love, which is my favorite of theirs. And it's just they bring back a melody from the first track in the last track. So I had that in mind when we wrote it, sort of thinking, how can I incorporate some of the themes from earlier in the album into that last track? So the arpeggio that's playing in the outro is the same arpeggio that starts the album, but it's a different tempo and a different key, so you don't notice it so much, but when you listen to it, it's like it's the same notes essentially. And then, like Ashleigh said with the lyric at the end there, it's just it's a way to kind of tie everything together.
Mm-hmm.
It is. That was a perfect ending. And when you're finishing, you don't even realize it's going on 7 minutes by the end of the song, because it's the whole journey and ride has been so different that it's kind of like, wow, it's done already, and you kind of go back into the track if you already have on a repeat. That's what's awesome, because I keep the album on repeat. I don't have it to stop, and this goes back in a nice loop.
Yeah.
That was, and you're playing in the background, because all this blends together from that when you're going out with Transfiguration back into Above. You're like, here we go again. We're gonna go back on the roller coaster through it.
There we go. You nailed it.
It worked.
And I mean, that's the best way to listen to these kind of albums, because this is like, even if it's unintentionally, it sounds like it was maybe a concept album, that's hard for a band to do as their first album, doing a concept album. But then each song has its own significance and meaning, like Communion. But they all have their own significant meaning, but a whole tied together theme at the end that you can just repeat again.
Right. Yeah, that was the goal. And I think, probably going forward, we'll continue to try to do things like that. Like we have, because we've been quarantined for the last couple of weeks, we're already working on another EP, and we won't give away too much in the way of detail, but it's the same kind of idea that we're working with an overall theme that we're going to hopefully build out into kind of one story that is split up into a couple of tracks, and we'll see how quickly we can get that moving now that we've got some downtime.
Yeah.
Now, I think I caught it in Deep State and maybe in a couple other songs. Did you have your voice do kind of like a little couple guttural like tones in there on like backing vocals?
I think just the sheer volume and the note that I had to really like learn how to belt, that just happened naturally. So yeah, Deep State for sure that happens, and I think in Entity that happens a little bit as well.
Ashleigh's got some heat in her vocals in places, but you might also be thinking of in Transfiguration, when we enter that last section, there is one true like scream in there, and that was me. So I have one.
Yes, that's probably it. And
one vocal on the album. And actually,
I don't know if you guys might incorporate that kind of going a dueling voice style with you guys, because that stuck out, like in a good note stick out for the song. I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? Because I didn't hear it for the rest of the album.
Live, we do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes Brandon and Colin will jump on my sometimes.
Yeah, Brandon and I will often live with screams up, and it adds an element of intensity that's not there on the record. We talked about adding it to the record too, and it just seems like if we go that direction, then we are probably going to go that direction for the future. So it's almost like we'll maybe pepper it in there lightly here and there, just, you know, once in a while. But if you see us live, definitely it adds a whole new element that you don't hear on the record, but brings that added intensity live. So we might just keep it that way and just do it when we're
well, I freaking want to. As soon as all this quarantine bullshit passes by, I have my list. You guys have been on my list of being wanting to see, even if it's in Texas, which I fucking love Texas. I've been to San Antonio plenty of times, Dallas, Fort Worth, everywhere. And no, Texas a little bit well, but I do want to go to one of your guys' shows. And hopefully with this, everything goes by, you guys can plan maybe even some local shows in the area, and I can just fly out to do it, because it's going to be inexpensive after all this shit anyway.
So, yeah, everybody's be able to do whatever they want. Good.
Yeah, we'll try to get something lined up in the fall. If it's not a tour, at least something in Texas as a one-off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got some. Well, we mentioned Shattered Sun. I think we toured with them in the fall of last year, the summer of last year. So maybe we'll work something out with them down in San Antonio or Corpus Christi, and hopefully we can see you there.
Yeah, and then hopefully you guys are coming out, because it was last year you guys came out to California and did the huge tour as well.
Yeah, we were in Sacramento. We did LA as well.
Yeah.
LA, Sacramento, San Jose, I think, too.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were at 1920, I think, in LA?
Where were we?
No, we were at...
we were in Echo Park somewhere.
Jeez, I forget. We'll look it up after. We'll message you.
It had to be... I remember it was somewhere like on the west side of Hollywood, maybe. Like it was either with Viper Room, maybe night 1720. 1720 is a newer venue, but it's really nice on the inside.
I'm looking, but we're using my phone to stream.
I remember Holy Diver, but it wasn't. That's not the one.
No.
Yeah, that's in Sacramento. Yeah, it's up there. That's a good venue. I like them a lot.
It was great. Actually.
Satellite. It was the Satellite.
Ah, yes. The Satellite.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. I know. Now I remember.
Yeah, great show. It was our first. That was our first night of that tour with those guys, and it was awesome.
It was packed. People were excited. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It looked good. When I saw the live videos, you guys sounded on point and sounded great.
Yeah, good.
I would say that's our specialty, is playing live.
Well, I'm excited to catch you guys, hopefully maybe this year or next year, before you guys go out to Europe and actually have the fun that you were supposed to have this last month and this month. Because you guys you're gonna hit Germany hard on the tour schedule when I saw.
Yeah, we had like 5 or 6 dates in Germany, I think. And they're still the same places, I think, just in a year from now. So
yeah, we'll be back over there. And hopefully, like we said, we'll hopefully have something in the fall to look forward to too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you guys do it, I'll hop over there. That's gonna be not a problem whatsoever. I look forward to it. Hearing you guys live, hearing the songs that I like, especially Deep State. I love Deep State. That was my favorite. But thank you guys so much for your time and whatnot. Hope you guys have a good weekend and stay safe during the coronafication going on right now. I'm going to have their links below, because I'm going to re-upload this on the YouTube and have their Facebook. Maybe if they have a MySpace, I'll put it on there. I think they may have saw it in there in the background. But their Spotify and the YouTube account, and of course their website, you can purchase their music and all their merch and everything to support them, because all the artists need support right now more than ever. You know, everyone got hit hard, especially the music community, with your tour dates and all that. So I know you guys, everyone, we're going to support the best way we can for everybody.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. You guys have a great weekend. Thank you.
Take care.